are here with Tessie Ashe, one of the original boss babes, okay, at least in my life. So, this is my mom, and I'm so excited that you're on.
Thank you.
And that we get to talk and chat and kind of, talk about how started, like, I guess, your life, like maybe a little bit of history, and
Okay.
then how you grew up,
Okay.
and then talk about how you and Dad became entrepreneurs, and that's really and truly what started. Like, that's the precursor of my life,
Right.
So, anyway, but go ahead and just talk about a little bit how you grew up and your family dynamic, maybe.
Interesting. I was born in 61,
Okay.
and we lived in Houston and Bel Air when I was born.
Okay.
And my dad and uncle built two houses out in Cyprus
Okay.
one for each family. And they moved out to Hempstead Highway. Back then it was Hempstead Highway. It wasn't 290, as everybody knows it now as a freeway at Jones Road.
Yeah.
It was Hempstead Highway in Jones Road, and then down Jones Road to Tower Oaks past 1960, which was a 2-lane road, much like kind of Nickel Sawmill,
Really?
Yeah, it was little.
Whoa.
It wasn't a thoroughfare. It was a farm to market road. So
Yeah.
just a
FM. Farm to-
and
yeah.
it was 2 lanes.
Gotcha.
And we moved out there when I was, I think, a year and a half.
Okay.
And then I have 4 sisters. And
There's
so
4 sisters?
Yeah, there's 4 sisters.
You have 3.
There's 3 sisters, 4 kids.
Uh-huh.
And Daddy got sick when I was 4 and passed away with cancer.
What kind?
Well, back then, they didn't know he had cancer till after he died. He got sick in October and died in February.
Oh, wow.
My sister Margaret tells me it was lung cancer, but he had a really big tumor at the base of his brain. And then after he passed away, the autopsy showed that his lungs were full of cancer. So I don't know.
Huh.
He worked in the shipyards. I don't know if he had the mesothelioma or whatever, but he got sick really quick and he went really fast. So Mom was left with 4 children, and I was 4, and then there's Mary was 8, Linda was probably 10, and Margaret was 12.
Okay.
I think somewhere in those
yeah, right.
young, very young.
Yeah.
So Mother went to work and filled my dad's shoes at the family business, which was
what?
outdoor equipment company.
Okay.
They made swing sets and slides, and it was all like the galvanized park type equipment.
Yeah.
In fact, we have a set out in our yard
Okay.
at home. So we have a slide and a swing, and we have 2 porch swings. Those all came from outdoor equipment.
Okay.
Anyway, so
Very cool.
Mother went to work because there was a partner, and the partner initially was an uncle, a great uncle
Okay.
of mine, which would be an uncle of mother's aunt's husband. And he had started outdoor equipment, and then Dad worked with him, and a lot of the family worked with him. So he worked, but he gained 50% partnership
Okay.
through working. And he opened up another location out on Hempstead and Jones Road, hence us moving to Cyprus.
I see. Okay.
So back in the day, we think now that's just busy, busy, busy. We had to drive to Gessner and Hempstead Highway to go to the grocery store
Oh, snap.
at Fairbanks grocery store.
Wow. So for
Right
those
next
who
door
are
to the-
not from the area, how many minutes or miles is
Oh, well, back in the day, if you're driving the cars that they drove, it took you an hour to go to the grocery store.
that? Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, the roads weren't like they are now. Jones was 2-lane, and it was slick as could be.
Really?
When it rained.
Dangerous.
People were always having wrecks on that road and stuff.
Okay.
So it was just a 2-lane kind of asphalt. With the
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, just to think about that road and how
Much
developed
traffic.
it is now.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know.
Okay.
It is crazy.
Okay.
So anyway, lived in Cyprus till I was probably 10 or 11 or 12, somewhere in there, and moved to Spring Branch.
Okay.
And then Mother bought a townhouse, and we lived in a townhouse because it was easier for her to keep up because our house in Cyprus had an acre and a half, and it was a lot for a lady and 4 young daughters to maintain. So then I went to Northbrook Junior High, Northbrook High School. Met Kevin when we were in high school, so we were high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
And we dated since we were 16, got married when I think we were 23, maybe, something like that. Gosh, I don't know, I was going to ask these questions out. I've done math. Anyway.
Somewhere around there.
Been married 44 years. We were together 6 before we got married. So
okay,
we've been married for
a long time.
Is that right? Maybe 83? No. We got married in 83. Been together 44 years.
Okay.
Long time. Anyway, so then we had you when I was 28. We were 28.
No.
Because we're the same age. 26. See, she's got it better than I do.
Well, the reason I know that is because when I was pregnant with Emma.
That's right.
You said that when you were pregnant with me, you were 26.
That's right.
And I was 26 when I had Emma, and you had me when you were 26.
And I had Paul when I was 28.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No worries.
And then 10 years after you came Caleb.
Right. Yeah.
So, but as far as businesses, we started a carpet cleaning business when you were born. And Kevin had been laid off. He worked in shops, like as a machinist.
Machinist. Okay.
In shops. And
so what does a machinist look like? Like what did
they
he
work
do?
on lathes and build parts and things for oil field.
Okay.
Tubes, and they have a solid piece of metal and the machine makes something out of it. And he ran those machines.
He ran the machines. And then when you were growing up, what did your mom do?
Well,
to provide for you girls.
She stepped into daddy's shoes at Outdoor Equipment.
Oh, so she did that. But what did she do before?
Before that, she was a housewife, but when she was young, she was a nurse.
Okay. So there's some nursing background. Whatever, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so then back to Dad. He was a machinist, and then what did you do before you went into business?
I was in the apartment industry.
Okay.
And started out as a leasing agent, worked my way up to a manager. I managed 2 properties, and I helped at different times. Back in the 80s, there was a lot of turnover in properties because that's when the banking, we had a banking crisis and foreclosures were big. That's when Jimmy Carter was in office and interest rates went up to 18%. I mean, it was in that era. It wasn't fun, and we had to wait in lines to get gasoline.
That is crazy.
And I remember doing that in high school, and if your license plate ended on an even number, then you went on certain days, and odd numbers the other days, and it was just nuts. It was so nuts, and of course it got real expensive. I mean, nothing like it is what we think of as expensive now, but.
So what happened when you went on not your day? Would they say, no, I can't serve you?
Yep. You didn't get gas. I know. Okay. It was crazy.
That's
was crazy.
Nuts, but okay.
So, yeah. But there was a lot of savings and loan problems. And Kevin is better at this, remembering all of these details than I am. As you can see, I've slept since then. Just like when I had my kids. I don't know how old I was, but I had them now. But anyway, but a lot of the savings and loans went under, and they had loan money for these apartment complexes. So a lot of those apartment complexes went in, default or whatever. So there were property management companies that came in and took them over, and I helped some of my property managers with things like that, going in and helping figure out what's going on when they take over a property, because you kind of have to do an assessment and stuff. So I did some of that, a little bit of that, not a lot.
Okay.
And then
what was your first job?
I worked at Hancock Fabrics.
You did?
Yeah, imagine that.
Mm-hmm. She's a quilter. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sewing.
Anything, yeah. Loved it. Loved working there. That was my first job.
Really? So from Hancock.
I went to Outdoor Equipment.
outdoor equipment,
Uh-huh.
and then you got the job
as in the apartment
in the,
industry.
yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And then so after that, we had you, and I worked in the apartment industry,
Did
and
we live in the apartments?
at
you worked?
first,
First,
and
okay.
then changed jobs, or you were new and I newborn, and I stayed home for a while,
Okay.
and then excuse me, and then I had one of the people who owned properties from the past, my apartment industry past, before the company I had departed with, called me, Mr. Kilday, and he said, "Hey, we've got this property. I want you to come work for us."
Okay.
And I did. And then, and that was over in Greens Point, which the time wasn't
At that time, it probably wasn't
bad.
Gunslinger.
Some parts of it were, but not where I was.
That's the nickname we have for it in Houston.
Yeah, it's called Guns Point. Yeah, because it's rough.
Yeah, it's super rough, but
a lot of low-income housing in that area, so that just brings the demographics into challenging.
yeah.
So then they added on to that property, and so I helped with that, bringing and punching units out and things like that. Cool. The new property. And then I got pregnant with Paul, and I didn't want to work. And you were in daycare, and that just tore my heart apart. And I'd had sitters up to that point, but my sitter went back to wherever, Columbia or someplace where she was from, and broke my heart. So shortly after, right before Paul was born, I quit that job.
Yeah.
And we had the carpet cleaning company. Kevin had started a carpet cleaning company.
So what made him want to get into carpet cleaning?
Because he'd gotten laid off from the machinist jobs.
Okay.
Because there was a downturn in oil and all of that back in the 80s. So, you get innovative, and so we did that. And then...
So bad times create innovation and
They do.
creativity, and got to figure it out.
Something, because we had no safety net.
Yeah.
We were our safety net, and that was scary because it was paycheck to paycheck. If you had a paycheck. Because
Paycheck to paycheck.
Because when he was cleaning carpet, and he did a lot of apartment complexes.
Okay.
Well, so some of those apartment complexes were foreclosed on. So they owed us lots of money. I mean, upwards of $20,000.
Oh my gosh.
That they said, we can't pay
you.
Yeah, and that's like,
Oh my gosh.
So I became really good friends with the accounts payable manager with them.
You have a way of doing that too. Which is so good, which is what you need, but you become friends with the people that you need to...
You need to remember who you are. And I mean...
And not in a bad way. Not like, oh God, she's calling again.
No, I just, hey, what's going on? What's going on? I just kind of need to know. If y'all can send us anything, we really would appreciate it. And they wound up eventually paying the bill off, which, thank you, Jesus, because we needed it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's what he was doing, carpet cleaning and all. So I resigned from my position in the apartment industry. And then I had Paul. And then after Paul was born, then we discovered things weren't just right with him, his health. And so then the pressure became intense.
Very pressurized.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was August 7th that he was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis.
Okay.
And that day he went into the hospital.
He did? Yeah. For what? What made him go into the hospital?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So they could get a baseline.
Oh, a baseline. Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Fresh. Anyway, so we did his baseline. He was in 10 days.
Okay.
And had the most wonderful nurses.
Good.
One in particular was Rose Simeon,
Uh-huh.
who was a nurse of my niece, Farrell.
Okay.
And Farrell had passed away 10 years prior with the same disease. So it was a very hard diagnosis for us because we had just in recent years experienced the end
The heartache of it.
of the disease with my
Yeah.
niece,
Yeah.
who was a trooper.
Yeah.
And but Paul was happy. After he started getting nutrition, because he
Would
wasn't.
just scream. Yeah, I remember he would just scream and
He
scream.
cried, because had belly aches and stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway, so once they got him on enzymes and they got him leveled out and he started gaining weight and all of that, then 10 days later he went home, and then he just thrived. He really did thrive.
Good.
And so we were very cautious of him, and one of our main reasons for homeschooling you guys was because of him.
Yeah.
And we didn't want him to be exposed to a bunch of
Germs.
cold and flu, and
Yeah.
kids bring home sickness and stuff.
Sure.
And so I thought homeschooling, of course I'm a homesteader at heart, so I like all of that, doing everything back the old ways. And so we did, and we met wonderful people, made wonderful friends that we're still friends with this day in the homeschooling community, and Pat and Carol Bartholomew, and the Schoenvogels, and
Yeah, I remember. So when Dad was out working and doing his carpet cleaning, and then I remember being the house at Camberwell, which was the Memorial Chase.
Yeah.
Right?
It was our first house. We bought that for $43,500.
Amazing.
Yeah. 3-bedroom house, and foreclosure. Because of the times that we had just come out of, it was a foreclosure, and so that was our first home.
Yeah.
And it worked out. It was a God thing.
Yeah.
It was a God thing. So
How that worked out.
Yeah.
So from there you went to moving, like you were in an apartment.
Yeah.
And then you moved to your first home, which is off of Camberwell. And I remember that house. All the time, not all the time, but ever so often, even nowadays, I still have dreams about being in that house.
Really?
Yeah, and it's me as an adult, or
that's so funny.
It's so weird, and it's just like the weird. I remember the trees, and I remember the pastor's house, like the Megan pastor and Vivian and Steve. They were our neighbors first.
Yeah.
And then I remember across the way, there was a white house that was the pastors at Victory.
Yeah.
And
Bechtol's.
Okay.
John and Verda Bechtol.
Okay. And I remember then, and then they moved, and then there was the Dews
that moved in.
And then I remember the front yard. We played a lot in the front yard. And then I remember the backyard, and there was a bayou behind the back. And then I remember the swing set, and then there was a gate that opened to the side of the house.
Yeah.
And I remember Paul and I would play out there, and I remember... okay, the house that was next door, it was a special needs home.
Group home. It was a group home.
It was a group home. Was it special needs?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. Yes.
Definitely.
Okay.
Adult.
Yeah. And so I remember them being out there, and just they'd be yelling, or it was just always chaos at that house. Chaos. But I remember that growing up, and
they had a van, and they would load everybody in the van to go to work.
Yeah.
And they go to whatever facilities or whatever they had, and then they would come back around 4 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And they'd all go in the house, So I mean, they were very peaceful until somebody got outside, and they weren't aware they were outside.
Yes.
I had an experience with, oh, Lord Jesus, yes.
You had an experience?
Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the story, but I don't remember.
Well, our house had 3 bedrooms. The master was like a mother-in-law plan. The master was over here, and then you came through the dining room, and then down the hall, and there was a bedroom. Well, the end bedroom at the end of the hall, I was using as, at the time, a sewing room. which wound up being an office, which wound up being kids. I mean,
Yeah.
we revolved doors with all kinds of stuff always. So
Right.
anyway, and I was quilting, working on a quilt, and I was sitting in front of the window because I liked the light, and I had blinds, right there, and I'm working, and I look up, and there is a man looking in, and I screamed. And I shut the blinds, and I was like, "Oh my God!" So I think you were in the room with me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I remember the story or I remember it happening, but I remember you screaming.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I'm just looking, and then I look up through the blinds, and then oh Lord God, yeah. So that was somebody had gotten out, and they didn't know they were. Yeah, they didn't realize he had walked outside.
Oh my gosh, so funny.
Freaked me out.
Yeah.
I mean, and we didn't have a relationship with we would say hi, how you doing or whatever, but the workers weren't friendly, and that's not their job. Their job was to take care of the patients and not be friends with the neighbors, but it was hard to understand what the dynamics of what was living next door was. And basically they were just adult Down syndrome people, special needs.
But back then it was like,
well, you just didn't know.
You don't know. And nobody would tell you. They're like, how do I juggle this,
Yeah.
But, okay, so I remember, and I was telling you this a little bit earlier, but one of the memories I have of that house, and we were homeschooled, so it was at the end of the day, and I was in the living room, and we were watching TV or, whatever it was. And I remember you in the kitchen, the light was on in the kitchen, and then the garage door was open, so I could see the light coming in, like natural light coming in through that door. And I remember you were in there cooking, and you always have your towel over your shoulder. And the phone rang, and you said, and it was one of those with the cord that, like the super extra long cord that we can go all over the house.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I was chasing kids too.
Well, yeah. So you had to have the extra long one, and you picked it up and you said, Century Carpet, Tessie speaking or whatever. And you were in there and you were cooking, and we knew that any time that the phone rang, we had to be quiet because you were basically running the business from your house and then homeschooling kids. And you were cooking dinner, and I remember it was like spaghetti or something. It was ground beef with garlic salt and pepper, and it's the best smell ever. It just fills the house. But I remember that, and I mean, even to this day, you still do the same thing. You'll be on the phone, and then you're holding Liam or Eli or whatever.
Got a baby on my hip.
Baby on your hip, doing the thing, and just. But I remember, like that was our life. That was normal. And you were just like bossing it up. You know what I mean? Like taking care of business and feeding your family and cleaning the house and homeschooling the kids and just covering everything.
Yeah.
Just covering the whole thing to make it work.
Yeah.
And like that's where I feel like we get our thing and our work ethic, really. I mean, on how to do things, how to be moms, how to, like, I remember seeing that, and you did it with such, I mean, it was, some moments were pretty hairy, but you do it with such grace, grace for the people, grace for the moment, grace, and I feel like that's such a gift that some people just don't know how to.
I was taught from little, and my family being in a retail business, and having a swing set company, is the customer's always right.
Yeah.
Now, we know they're not always right, but you want to be sure that they have the ear.
Yeah.
That they can at least express themselves, and you treat them with dignity, and you look at their situation, look at their vantage point on things.
Right.
However, that is sometimes nowadays people don't have that character.
No.
But back then, that's I had children to raise. I had a child that had some special health issues and how we Paul, when he was little, it was real important that he get lots of calories.
Yeah.
So hence we all got lots of calories since we all got a little fluffy and we like to eat well. So Paul was always, well fed, and so were we. But so it could be challenging, especially in the early days of him being born. Was very challenging.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just little special. It wasn't little special things that you just tweak this. It was very serious, especially at that time. Mm-hmm. The prognosis.
They expected him to live to be 8.
That's what you were handed.
Yeah.
And with that experience,
my God,
I know exactly. But that experience that you had with Farrell, just validated what they said.
Yeah,
and then but you're a fighter.
Oh yeah,
we are fighters.
Yeah,
Ashes are fighters. Dad's a fighter. And so you guys took every step necessary that you had to, even if it was uncomfortable, to go ahead and do the best thing for him. And then the whole situation, the whole family dynamic as well. Mm-hmm. Was it hard? Hell yeah, it was. But it was worth it.
Fighter is one word, but we're not quitters.
That's right.
We don't quit. And they, when he was diagnosed, the challenge then became financially.
Yes.
Is that we had to have health insurance.
Yeah.
Because back then, you had to be destitute to get any help from the state.
Yeah.
And anything. And they really, one person even counseled us that maybe we should get divorced. Because if we were divorced, then me having custody of the child, I would be a divorced single mom that would qualify. Mm. Well, I was just like, whatever, what do we got? But Kevin's like, no, we're not doing that. Yeah. He said, because then it's too easy to walk away.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
That's the truth.
So we had, at the time, with a family of 4, small kids, self-employed, our insurance was more than our house note.
Wow.
House note was maybe $600 a month, but our insurance was $750. Every year it'd go up $850.
Yeah.
And we were making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, it was literally praying in the mailbox.
Yeah.
Lord, please, we need to pay our light bill this week. I need to pay it by Tuesday.
Yeah.
God would have the money there.
Yeah.
It was hard, but when you go through those hard times, you're building muscle.
Yeah, that faith muscle.
The faith muscle. Mm-hmm. And just watch God move.
Yeah.
And Kevin worked all the time.
Yeah.
He'd get called out at 1:00 in the morning for a flood. Someone's house flooded.
Yeah.
Oh, he'd go, and he'll say it to this day. I'm crawling around in dog piss, but yeah. When a house floods and they have pets, then and some people aren't very clean.
No,
I'm not clean. I'm not a clean freak, but there's some that are really, really bad. And he's like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe the stuff that, carpet.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he cleaned carpet, he cleaned bowling alleys, he cleaned apartments, he cleaned anything he could clean to put money on the books so that, we could pay our bills.
Yeah.
So, and then how we changed from that is that he took his machine, he had a truck mount machine, the kind that goes in the van, to a repair guy who was in the industry. Guy charged us like, I don't know, $800, which might as well have been $8,000 to us because it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And still didn't fix it. So one Sunday afternoon, Kevin's out there working on it, looking, and I'm standing there at the truck, the side of the van with the door open. And he goes, I'll be. What? He goes, it's a wire.
Okay.
A wire was broken or burnt or something. He replaced the wire. Machine worked fine. He goes, if I can do this, if he can do that, I can do that.
Yeah.
So that's how Century Supply was born.
Okay.
And so Century Supply was a supply company that supplied carpet cleaners, restoration companies, and people with cleaning supplies, carpet cleaning supplies, chemicals, anything to do with carpet maintenance and all that. And we had a little bitty shop over on Veterans Memorial. Then we bought a building on Gessner and renovated that building. And Caleb was born during all of that.
During all that, I remember.
Because he was I was home from the hospital 2 days when we went to go sign the papers on that loan. Yeah. We don't stop for having babies.
No. We sure don't.
No, ain't nobody got time for that. So
that's how it was my first, my second, and my third. I took a little bit of time, but
come on. He's like it's like, I don't know, like the possums do. Carry them and go. Strap them in. Let's go. So so we started Century Supply that way.
Okay.
And then had that business from 94. Caleb was born in 97. That's when we bought the building. But we started at 94.
Okay.
Around there. And sold it in 2005 or 6, 7, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it was right around. I graduated high school in 2005.
So around that time.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was some overlap there with Ashland Manor.
Yeah.
That was 2003. Kind of started that whole deal. And then finally, I think Century sold somewhere in there.
Yeah, 5 and 6, somewhere in there. Yeah. So we started Ashland. And then...
so what made you want to... Why the shift from carpet cleaning to...
weddings
and events and
Kevin
people.
And my friend Colleen. It wasn't me, because I was a bookkeeper at Century Supply.
Okay, so at Century Supply, you were more of the books, background, again, making sure everything worked, all the...
Accounts receivable, accounts payable.
Okay.
Debt, all that. And then we had a storefront there. So it was...
and I remember we would do like the mail outs.
Yes.
And me and Paul would help you like fold
catalogs.
them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then we'd have one job, and we'd sit there and we watch Star Wars and Three Ninjas and Pure Country. Ooh, I love Pure Country. But yeah, we would sit there in Texas. We would watch the movie Texas. Paul loved that movie. And we would sit there and we'd either, you had the automatic, finally we got an automatic stapler instead of doing this thing. We would,
Oh, we'd send out thousands of flyers and all over Texas or wherever. It was all the carpet cleaning companies in Texas or Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, whatever. We would do classes. When we moved into Century, we would do these education classes, and everybody was certified in carpet cleaning and restoration and flood damage, and then mold remediation was really, really big. We did a lot of classes in that, and
because you had to be certified to be able to do all that,
right?
Yeah,
and so it was a really good business. I mean, but it took a turn when the internet came in the scene, when people could buy directly from our suppliers, instead of coming to the mom and pop store.
Yes.
So when that happened, Kevin said, we need something else. And I'm just like, oh, no, we don't need another business. God, please no. And so he and Colleen, he and Colleen were always talking about event centers. Because Colleen's comes from a family that catered and did that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so they would always talk about that. And the vision is to have a hall and kind of that thing, I wasn't interested because it was weddings, and I was just freaked out by weddings. Totally freaked out. That's somebody's days. I didn't want to screw it up. I don't know nothing about. I mean, I did my wedding, and that wasn't really much. It was a church wedding with little church reception. Cake and punch. Oh, we had sandwiches.
Okay.
And at the fellowship hall, simple, nothing fancy at all. but so that summer before we started, and I don't know if you guys remember this, I'm sure you will, when we went to Louisiana all of the plantations.
Oh, yeah.
So we saw in the
That was fun.
That was
fun.
fun.
Really fun if you can do that.
Yeah. We saw in the newspaper one Sunday that they did a River Road, like in the travel section or whatever, when we had got newspapers. And so I'm like, that looks cool.
Yeah.
So let's do this. Well, Colleen and Mike were over, our friends, and so they were over. So we all got together and talked about, let's go do this. So we left on a Wednesday or Thursday, and Mike took some days of vacation, and Kevin left work, and we loaded the kids up because it was before school was going to start, and we went and toured the plantations.
Yeah.
And so that put the bug.
Oh, boy.
That was it.
That was it. That's what did it.
That's what did it. But we went to the Laura plantation. We went to the San Francisco plantation. We went to the Nottoway plantation, which I think Nottoway was my favorite.
Yeah.
And then Oak Alley, which is beautiful, but it was super commercialized.
Yeah.
There was 4 that we went to, I think. But Nottoway had a historian.
Yes.
And I found that historian, and Kevin and Colleen sat down on a settee. It wasn't even a sofa, it was a settee. And I'm sitting here talking to this historian, just like
I know, just eating it.
hanging on every word that she said.
Because we love history.
I love history, especially that history.
Yeah.
And Kevin does too, but he wasn't into it as much then as he is now, because now he's discovered his family. He has a pedigree that goes back to
William the Conqueror days. Yeah.
Yes. So
That's
anyway,
amazing.
yeah, it's amazing. Ashes to Ashes coming soon.
Yeah.
But anyway, we hope so. We want him to do a story for our family, so that
For sure.
tell the stories.
It's amazing.
But anyway, so I'm this historian, the people who owned the Nottoway, the second owner had just passed away that week.
I remember. Because they had
the black veil over the mirrors.
Over the mirrors. And why did they have that? What, you remember why?
Well, the story goes is that in the day when someone died, they covered the mirrors so that their spirit couldn't come back.
Come back through. Right.
Come back through.
Uh-huh.
So anyway.
So things would show up in the mirrors. Or after. So they just kept that closed.
Yeah. Well, they hoped.
The veil down.
They hoped, but it didn't stop it. Trust me. So, but the owners prior to this lady that owned it was the Randolph family, I think, Thomas Randolph or whatever. During the Civil War, he took his family and his slaves to Chapel Hill, right up the road here. And they farmed in Chapel Hill cotton, and I believe the story was, she said that he took his money and put it in the British pound.
Okay.
Because whoever won the war, if you had your money in the Confederate money,
you ain't gonna have no money no more. So that's very smart. He put it into the British pound because that was actually going to stay.
That was a currency that was going to, or put it in gold or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I believe the story is that something about that. But anyway, they came to Chapel Hill, which I was just like all over it, because we at that time had property in Chapel Hill, and I love the Texas history.
Yeah.
I mean, homeschooling, that was my favorite thing. Let's go to Washington on the Brazos. Let's go
to Austin. Let's go to there.
Yeah.
We traveled so much in homeschooling that we got to actually go and experience, the Alamo or whatever. You made like a whole, I forgot what you would call them, but they're like a lesson plan surrounding that whole history lesson, and then we'd go see it. Like, how cool is that? Most kids don't, they just read about it and barely if they can read. This is
where they did this. This is where Travis and, they this was the room that he was in. This room right here.
I remember Paul and I think it was Nathan and
Bartholomew,
and they were so stoked about the Bowie knives.
Oh, yeah.
They got
Bowie knives.
And then they had their hats. It was like it was like a tail. There was
Yeah.
a tail coming off something on there. But David Crockett, it was one of their the ones that they would talk about.
Yeah.
Paul would constantly just like
Love David Crockett.
And then they had their little rubber band guns.
Yes.
That we would get there, and very cool.
Yeah. And then we'd go see the movie at the IMAX next to the Alamo about the Alamo.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still have it, but it was awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
It was filmed in Brackettville, Texas.
Great experience. I mean, especially as people back then, they would be like, oh, you're homeschooled. And now it's like more people are going to homeschool for various reasons.
Yeah.
But they're kind of bogged down with that mindset. Oh, they're not going to be socialized, all of that. But truly,
kids.
like, we had so many friends, so many experiences. We took classes, we took art, we took horseback riding, we went and saw all the things. We went camping, and we would look at the caves and the caverns, and whoa, like, what an awesome childhood.
Yeah.
To go see and experience all of those things. You can't do that in school.
Mm-mm.
The regular public, no shame to it, but you can't experience that. And I feel like it's so cool to have those experiences to look back on, and those memories to look back on.
Because they're always tied with camping.
Oh, always. And then those raccoons, you really learn how to secure your food. With that, because they're smart there.
They are smart. They are smart.
Anyway, but yeah, we would always go camping, and Inks Lake was a big one that we would go to.
Oh, that's where the caverns are. Longhorn Caverns. And then, Stephen F. Austin State Park is where the site of one of the battles, Texas were. And if you go to the site, at the time you still could dig around in the dirt and find pottery or broken dishes or things that from the site of the town where they had, stuff happen. But in talking about socializing your children and homeschooling, my kids, and Caleb went to school, to private school, because that's when we started the manor, and we were busy with that, and he needed to be educated.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of important. But such a difference. But with homeschooling, our kids could talk to adults. They could play with little kids. Mm-hmm. You didn't have the peer of like, this is my age group, this is who I'm going to be around with, this is who I can talk to. And you saw that through fruition with Paul.
Yeah.
Because Paul had friends. He loved the little kids. Yeah. He adored his nieces and nephews. But he was friends with people that are older than me.
Yeah.
And some of those friends even drove from Ohio to his funeral.
Yeah. Well, because it's like...
We met on a Matchbox 20 cruise.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was the bomb. That was the bomb. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
Me and Paul. And then Susie and John. We just had a ball.
Yeah.
And he got to meet Matt. He got to meet Rob and all that.
Rob Thomas. He was Rob-cessed.
He was Rob-cessed.
Instead of obsessed, he was Rob-cessed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Rob-cessed.
funny.
He was. He
loves me. He loved music and lyrics, and
even till the end, lyrics were a big thing with him.
Big deal. Yeah. But I mean, even going back to the homeschooling, and I mean, like you said, we could have real conversations with people, polite conversation, even if you agree to disagree or whatever, or even not even saying that, just saying, yeah, like I see where you're coming from.
Look through people's eyes. You don't, everybody's so quick to judge somebody.
Yeah.
In today's society, especially, of well, you fit into this category, but I'm over here in this category, and you're wrong.
Right.
Well, no, we're all human.
Right.
We're all humans.
Right. And
if you don't try and see things from their vantage point, then you can never come together or agree to disagree. But that's what America's supposed to be. We're supposed to be free.
Right.
Although they're trying to change that quickly.
Right.
Because they're canceling you if you don't do this or you or that.
If you don't do X, Y, Z or whatever.
It's dumb.
Like, with
People
my
need
kids,
to wake up.
with my kids, I agree with that. They do need to wake up. But I could see with some of our kids, they go to public school, and some of them go to private school. They're very. This is my grade. This is They don't talk to.
It's classes.
Yeah, it's like exactly. It's like like a
social class. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and whereas like with our
I
kids,
play sports and you don't.
Yeah.
I'm a
It's very
cheerleader and you're
separated.
not.
It's not like that's not cool. And so then I told like my kids, I'm like, you know what? Like it doesn't matter if you're friends with somebody who is in, 8th grade or 3rd grade or your baby sister or whatever. I said, we are all here on this planet at the same time.
Right.
So that's what matters. Don't focus on the wrong things. So you can learn something from somebody who's in 3rd grade, and you can learn something from somebody who's who's graduated, who's an adult, who's a grandma. You can learn. That's why you're here, is to learn from each other and love on each other.
Just because you have a conversation, some things, if I'm having a conversation with somebody or whatever, and I've already heard the story, or I already know this, and I just have to check myself, because there's always something you can learn from somebody, or even if you've heard it before, you may not have heard this version of it before,
right,
or whatever. But it's important, because don't discard people because you don't think they are what you need to be around.
Right.
Because you can always learn something, you can see something a different way,
or you might be in a different spot in your life and it might hit you different.
And later on, you may go back to that memory and think, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
just that when we would have in the wedding industry, and I know our time is getting short, but when we had our venue, there were some people that were just struggling. They're clients, and they would display attitude or whatever, or whatever. And you never know why somebody's at where they are in their family dynamics. Weddings and funerals and babies being born and holidays are pivotal times in a person's life. You'll remember what happened 2 Christmases ago. You'll remember what happened at a wedding that was either great fun or a disaster.
Right.
You'll remember when somebody died and how someone behaved at a funeral.
Yeah.
Or what someone said about your loved one at a funeral.
Yeah.
You remember those things because they're just like pops of explosion in your brain of memory.
Right.
So they're also a very emotional time.
Yeah, everything's emotionally charged at that time too.
And weddings, and as well as that they can be. And so one time I had this mom, and she was just upset, and big upset, and not at me. I hadn't done anything. I was trying to help her, and she slammed the door in my face, and I was like, and I just stood there. I thought, and Colleen goes, well, what do you think? I go, well, she's not mad at me. It turned out her ex-husband was there, who brought his now wife. They've been divorced 5 years, never got things settled emotionally.
Yeah.
Brought his wife, who was the woman who is the reason why they divorced.
Or something, yeah.
And they were there together, and it just brought all that emotion back up.
Yeah.
And
oof.
Yeah, it's hard. So anyway, by the end of the wedding, they were going around together greeting all the guests, because I think
Together.
Well, what happened is that the dad saw the police officers there.
Oh.
Because we always have police officers. We always had one, but if there was alcohol, there was two.
There's more than one.
Because that was the rule. They had to have more than one there if they were serving alcohol.
Yeah.
That was a rule that police gave us. That was their condition. So the guys show up, the cops show up, and they're doing their thing. Well, the dad thinks
It's because of him.
it's because of him.
Oh. Guilty
he
conscience, maybe.
assumes that because there's drama, you know.
Animosity.
So everybody,
No, there's just alcohol for me to deal with this.
So we, Colleen and I, my sidekick, we're walking from the house to the hall, and the dad is walking kind of alongside of us, and the mother of the bride is walking toward us. So we're crossing paths, and as we're crossing paths, he growls at her. Like that. And she just takes off. Well, then I had to ask her a question or something, so I turned around because I was a coordinator. I turned around. Colleen was going to the hall. She was going to the hall to do her job because she was the event coordinator. So I go turn around and go to ask the mother a question, and that's when I go up to the room where they're, all the girls are getting dressed, and that mother looked at me and just like, bam, slammed the door in my face. I was like, well, okay. But she was hurt. She was hurting. That was unresolved issues. So when you're in that industry, either you take it personally or you start thinking like a counselor.
Yes, yeah.
And you start learning dynamics and how this is going to affect that.
Oh, the dynamics. And then you start seeing patterns and then you're like, oh, it's this dynamic again. Okay, we're going to probably deal with it this
we're going to,
way.
and oh yeah. And a lot of thinking on your feet.
Yeah.
Quick.
Yeah, quick.
But anyway.
Sink or swim.
Yeah. Go hide out in the kitchen.
Right.
They're mean out there.
Mean a minute.
But but that was that. By the end of the wedding, everybody had relaxed, and the wedding went off without a hitch, and everybody was happy, and then they kind of, I think they just thought, okay, give it up, and so they were going around and meeting their families and stuff together, which we'd sit at the table after our job was done, and we all had a little table set up for the coordinators, and then we watched how dynamics were unfolding. And it was all right. It made the bride's day good.
And that's ultimately what
and
matters.
That's what we're after.
Yeah. That's at the end of the day. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah. And they have a good experience, and they go home, and they have good memories.
So we would work together quite a bit throughout the years. I've been doing this for 21 years. You had the business for 20 years, and then you sold it, right?
Yeah.
So you sold it how many years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And but we wouldn't hide it, but we wouldn't make a point to tell people that we were related because there was just so much. People are weird, first of all, and they would make things like
make it weird.
They would make it weird, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, that's why you're pushing, or giving us the option of exquisite because that's your daughter, And so it just invalidated my business as a whole when that would happen. And then plus we would honestly get more information if there was something going on one end or the other, or they came up and complained about somebody's hair or whatever. I'd get a phone call or a text and be like, hey, so-and-so is not happy. You might just follow up. And so then I would go check on them and tweak it as needed or whatever needed to happen, or vice versa. If somebody came in and was like, that, so-and-so is so mean to me, and there's so much drama, and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or whatever it is, or they're not here yet, or all of that. You hear any time that someone can complain and they're that type of personality, they would find just the smallest little things, but they would make it a big deal.
Especially if they're already stressed because they've already got stuff going on.
Yeah.
Whether it's self-inflicted
or not.
Yeah. Because sometimes, that's back when, it was the bridal shows.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
What is that name of that show?
Bridal Extravaganza.
No. Those, not those. When they would have the
Perfect Wedding Guide.
No, the reality shows.
Oh my gosh. Bridezilla.
Okay, so when that,
No.
We don't allow we would say, I'm sorry, we don't allow bridezillas at Ashland Manor. What can I do to help you?
Yeah.
Let me help you. Yeah. Because that kind of created a culture
Yeah.
of the bride of that time.
Ugh.
And they thought that's how they were supposed to act.
Unreal.
Which, well, and all of that's scripted. You
It
know,
is.
come on.
And they
Any
make
reality
drama.
show
If you
is
don't have drama, they make drama.
Oh yeah, and then you have people that just want to be the drama, you
Sure.
know, because they're, for whatever reasons, you know, they whatever. But and I loved all of our brides.
You had some of the best brides.
Loved them.
Really.
I prayed those brides in.
Yeah.
We prayed. God, send us the brides you want us to have, because we
Yeah.
want their day to be good, and we want to make it good for them.
Yeah.
You know, so we would do that.
So when you first got into the wedding industry, you said you were scared. There's a hair right there. You said you were scared, and then we went to a bridal show, and then what happened? What made you more comfortable to...
I met Janice and Nancy from Butler's Courtyard.
Yeah.
And
Angels.
oh my gosh.
That's what they were.
Heaven sent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nancy
Yeah.
Richards and Janice
And she
Wilson.
taught you how to do a
They
wedding.
took Colleen and I under their wing,
Uh-huh.
and they brought us to their venue.
Yeah.
They opened up their books, showed us how they build their clients, showed us where they ordered their tables and chairs from, showed us everything.
Yeah.
And then we stayed with them, and we did 2 rehearsals and a wedding.
Yeah.
And so we would just put on, when it came time for us to do those, when we started booking weddings and doing weddings, scared straight.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say the word I'm really thinking, but you know what I mean.
You know what I
Scared to
mean.
death. I would say, okay, I'm Nancy today, and I would just go, and I had a checklist, and we still are about checklist, and
Yeah.
I made a particular sheet. First it was 1 little sheet, then it became 4, and then it became 8 sheets, and we filled them out, and everybody got it. So it was by the time we were up rocking and rolling, it was a very well-oiled machine.
Smooth process.
And
Yeah.
every
That's
vendor
so
that
good.
came to Ashland Manor when
Yeah.
we owned it
Yeah.
said, y'all have it down.
Yeah. And you did.
And we did, because we had enough mistakes to freak me out to create another checklist, to put this, we need to put that on the list. We need to put
Yeah.
this on the list, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, down to the music, down to I ran the music for the ceremonies until we did the chapel.
Yeah.
Well, no. Before that, the DJ started running it, but I did it for a long time. So I was wedding coordinator, and I was sound person.
Yeah.
I would go start the music, go get my bride, bring her out, bring the girls out, line them up, tell them what to do,
Yeah.
and then I would be standing at the sound booth going, go.
Yeah.
And I'd hit the music, and they go, and then I'd bring it down, and I'd go back to the bride, fluff her dress, make sure everything was right. Her bouquet needs to be low.
Yeah.
Hold your hand at your belly button.
Yeah.
They always come here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
They're scared too.
I know, and then I'd say stand right there, and I'd go back over to my soundboard, and I'd hit the button, and then she'd go, and it was, some of them were really, most of them were always touch my heart, but
Yeah.
some of them really touch my heart.
Yeah. Some of them were just fantastic.
People, the
People,
stories,
Yeah.
beautiful. All of them were beautiful.
Yeah.
Some were very simple. Some were very extravagant.
Yeah. But you got to see, I feel like the facility itself, you could go whichever direction you wanted to go. If you just wanted to keep it casual, it was very elegant casual. Or if you wanted to amp it up and do all the things, you could absolutely do that, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. It was like, I've learned, I know our family's been through all the things, you know, and just hearing the stories, and just every weekend it was something else, you know, that happened. And
I come home from work, Kevin, go, okay, what happened tonight?
yeah, what happened tonight? Tell me.
Oh yeah, there was always. That's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother
show.
story. We'll get back to that, but at some point. But I really love how you guys have drive, how you've raised us.
Thank you.
That even with my kids, you know, I want to instill experience with them in their lives. Even though they're going to a private school, it's a little bit more flexible, but it's kind of the same experience, because I feel like it brings so much depth to them as a person, you know, and then able to connect and learn about just being a constant learner, you know.
Yeah.
I love that. But thank you for coming on. Is there anything that you want to add, or just as
Thank
we
you
close.
for having me.
Yeah, of course.
For having me. It was fun.
Yeah. Until next time.
Until next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.